Welcome back to the Gotham Sports Machine. I'm your host, Jack Healey, joined today by my co-host, Mark Healey, and we're going to talk some baseball. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jack. Obviously, the Mets, coming off a great series against the Giants, really got things rolling in a positive way after that not so great series against the Cardinals. But the big news, obviously, as we found out yesterday, is that Juan Soto's going on the IL, and I think, look, it stinks, but it could be worse, right? And here's the thing. Here's my question to you. Um, the corresponding move was what the Mets brought up Ronnie Mauricio, but where is he going to play?
Yeah, I mean, it's already been kind of a makeshift lineup, especially with Polanco getting his Achilles aggravated. He's never really settled in the field. He's really just DH'd. And now you got Vientos. He started absolutely raking, and he looks great again. And now you have to put him in the lineup, and you have to
Right,
play him at first, especially with Beatty. He hasn't been bad, but he really he hasn't broken out. Like he hasn't found a consistency.
right,
So you can't. Mauricio's never really played first either, so you can't really throw him in that mix.
right.
He's never really he kind of played the outfield, I think, once or twice, maybe played right, but never really been comfortable there.
And
And third base
they have a third baseman. So,
is Bichette.
right,
So and then second base, Simeon, he started to hit, and the whole reason you got him is because he's such a good second baseman. I guess he gets some time at short because Lindor's struggling, but Lindor's known to start slow. I mean, he's also getting older. I guess you throw him in at short here and there, give
I
Lindor some days
guess, I
off.
guess. I mean, I just, and Beatty, jammed his thumb, so I don't even know if he's going to be available today. So we'll see. Obviously they're playing an earlier game today. Early start because supposedly the weather tomorrow night's not going to be so great. But here's the other thing too, and you got to play Vientos because Zach Gallen, who's starting for the Diamondbacks today, Vientos is the only guy who's healthy right now who has a home run against him in his career. Simeon, I believe, has like a 385 batting average against him, which is great. Because I was looking at some of the matchups today. Zach Gallen, obviously, as I said, is pitching for the Diamondbacks today. Freddie Peralta's on the mound for the Mets. What have you seen from Freddie Peralta that you like so far? And is there anything that you haven't liked? What you've seen?
I mean, he's shown that he's got great stuff. I mean, he's also not had the best of luck when it comes to the Mets fielding. So I'm really not worried about some of his earned runs, and he gave up 2 home runs. It's gonna happen. Pitchers give up home runs, especially in this MLB. Every guy's swinging for the fences.
Right.
So his stuff looks legit. He's shown why he was what he threw 200 strikeouts. I think he led the national. He might have led the entire MLB in strikeouts last year. He's got legit starter elite ace stuff. Like
Yep.
if the Mets pay
Yeah.
him, I'll have
No problem.
no problem with it.
And he's looked good. I mean, I feel like he's looked good. Yeah, he's had a couple of hiccups, but power pitchers are going to give up home runs. They haven't cost him really. The Mets offense has really cost him more than anything else. And a couple of situations where maybe he had to work a little bit harder because of the fielding behind him, letting him down. The last game where Lindor didn't know how many outs there were, so he had to pitch an extra 6 or 7 or 8 pitches that inning. Probably cost him, pitching a full 6 innings in his last game. So I'm not worried about him at all. Like it's nice to have a guy that you can just throw in there when you're having a losing streak, and somebody like that who at the top of your rotation, who's such a good pitcher. So obviously, you're always looking to get a win, right? Those days that you have your ace going. Um, but on the flip side, Arenado, who's now with the Diamondbacks, has had a very, very, he has great numbers against. He's the only one in their lineup. Corbin Carroll has some good numbers against Peralta too, But that's going to be a matchup to watch today. Arenado has done very well against Peralta in his career. Here's another thing, another question I have for you. What we've seen so far with, and I hate to say it because, he hit 2 home runs the other night and, he is such a young and exciting player, but, the Mets just seem so much more when Torrens is in the lineup and he's behind the plate. I mean, obviously he had a big hit. He doesn't really hit much, but he had a big hit in the last game, big pinch hit. But he's so good behind the dish, throwing runners out. You think that the Mets would like
No,
do
you
anything
get
there?
out of here. Torrens, what do you get? 200 last year with a 500 OPS? Get out of here. He has stretches where yeah, he's great behind the dish, and he has stretches where he looks like a competent hitter, but over a season, he is not a starting catcher. He's not. That is Met fan delusion of like, oh, this guy looks great in the first week. I love Torrens. Don't get me wrong. Torrens is he's one of the guys like I will overrate a little bit, and I'll have like a favoritism over a guy who's like never watched him play. But am I gonna seriously consider him starting every day over Alvarez?
Well, no, I'm not saying that, but just maybe start them a little bit more than they do. No,
Then like how is Alvarez ever gonna like he's supposed to be the franchise cornerstone catcher, and he's only
right? You're
what,
right.
24?
You're right. I see. What I do sometimes when we do these podcasts is I ask some of the things, or I throw out some of the things that I see on my timeline on Twitter, and because people say stuff like that, like, oh, Torrens should be behind there every day. Alvarez is this and Alvarez is that. It's ridiculous. So, you know, uh, Beatty, as I mentioned before, Beatty, I don't know if he's going to be in the lineup today, and he jammed his thumb the other night on that slide. But he could be, we brought up Juan Soto. I mean, I asked you about Mauricio, but what are they going to do with left field?
Again, it's been such a makeshift even outfield. No one's outside of Soto, no one's stayed in a solidified spot because Robert, you don't start every day. Benj hasn't been like really good at all outside of the first game. Jared Young has randomly been good. So
Right.
like they're like kind of like, oh, we could throw him in there
How
every
about that
single.
defensive play that Jared Young made? Like that came out of nowhere. He's got a hose.
Yep, that was
Who
a great
knew?
throw. Yep.
Right? I mean, that was just, I was like, what? What did I just see? I mean, he was a hose. That was tremendous.
So I would think you're gonna see more of him, and then maybe like I guess but Ben doesn't really play left. He's really more of a center fielder and a right fielder. So
Right. Do you think they're gonna send Bench down, or do you think they're gonna stick with him?
well now you can't. Now until
Right.
Soto gets back, you have to keep him up. It makes no sense to send him down.
I don't think it makes any sense. Look, if he's gonna stay up here, he's got to play every day. That's the way I feel. I mean, maybe you sit him against a tough lefty, but to me, this is how you learn. You don't learn anything in AAA. I don't think you do. I mean, when you're a young player, I mean, he had a great spring training, and Vientos had a terrible spring training.
Yeah,
I
it
always
just goes to show.
it doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. I mean, sometimes it wins you a job, and sometimes it could lose you a job. But good major league teams, they don't put a lot of stock into what happens in spring training, and I just feel like I see Benj maybe getting his swing getting a little long, and maybe he's getting frustrated. But that's what coaching is for. That's what veteran players are for. And I would like to see him stay up here. I really don't. Do I think it's terrible if they send him down? No, because sometimes young players, they need a little dose of reality. But Benj seems to me like he's mentally, he's mentally fit. He's not going to fall apart if he gets sent down. But I think at the end of the day, the Mets do have some prospects down, in Double A and Triple A, that they might think about bringing up. They didn't bring them up this time, which was interesting. They brought up Mauricio um, without really a place to play, which really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But, you know, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Um, what if you know what I when I think about the Mets and I think about all the things that we talked about before the season, the things that were worried about us, the bullpen has been really good.
Yeah, because they stopped using Lovelady. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Like the Yankees have been doing the same thing, throwing in Jake Bird. It's just like these teams, they assemble these great bullpens and then they just throw one or two absolute duds and cornballs in. Like it makes a little tiny bit of sense in the beginning of the year because you want to just have an arm out there. But there's so many guys. There are so many, and there's so many. Both teams 100% have a kid that they could have tried in that bullpen spot. I know the Mets have Dylan Ross. They 100% could have gave him a shot instead of Lovelady. And they even cut Hudson so that they could keep him. And with the Yankees, it's like most of their bullpen is really, really good. Like you guys got guys like Cruz, you got Bednar's pitching really good, you got Hedricks pitching really good,
Hmm.
you got even like he's shaky right now, but I think you can bet that Duvall will bounce back at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe not in the eighth inning, maybe you have to demote him and take him out of that eighth inning role, but he's been a solid arm over his career. And even the guys like Tim Hill, who's 95 years old, is like a reliable, consistent arm. It doesn't make sense to me why these teams just are adamant on throwing in these cornballs.
Well,
But
especially in games that matter, like if you're down 5-0 and you want to use Lovelady or Blackburn, you want to use those guys in those games where you're down by 5 runs or you're up by 5 runs. I mean, it makes sense, right? Because you don't want to blow out your bullpen in April. You don't want to do that. But when you have a day off the next day and then randomly used like Tobias Myers the other night in a game where they were up by a bunch of runs, um, that didn't make any sense. But then when you think about, was it that what was it his day to work? They always have a reason, but then what happens is the next day, then you're in a tight game and you would rather use one of those good arms, and then you got to bring in a Blackburn. It's like yikes.
it's like a lot
Right.
of these reasons just don't make sense.
Right.
And we're like a week of games in, basically a little over a week. Everybody has played. Everybody that like should have played, should have got at bats, has gotten at bats. Everybody that like needed to pitch, you needed to see pitch, whether they're a starter in the bullpen, they've pitched.
Right.
You know what kind of everyone's got right now. There's no excuse over this next week or two to like be forcing guys that aren't like doing well, like especially if they've never done well before. I'd say the Mets really don't have that outside of Lovelady on the roster. The Yankees have two or three guys that like they're just adamant on like, oh, we got to play this guy, we got to play this guy, and not upgrade that position when it's just like, why? You're the Yankees. You could easily make a move here or there, or even use a guy in your farm system to replace this guy. Whether it's like, I mean, Caballero, he's been like there. Like he hasn't hit a single lick. He's fielded well,
Right.
but like
After that
he's
first game, like he had a nice hit that first game, the first RBI of the year for the Yankees, and he hasn't really hit anything since.
Ryan McMahon. He first got here, first got to New York. He was okay. Didn't really do anything in the regular season. He had a decent postseason, actually had a good postseason. This year he's been miserable, hasn't done a single thing, and they like didn't even like that's like two utility guys in your starting very important positions on your infield. I guess like you got Volpe coming back, but another guy who's never proven anything.
Well, he
And
was
you
the
go
rookie of the year. He was the rookie of the year, Jack. He was.
going like you went the Yankees went into this year fully knowing that they would have that those guys as shortstop, third base,
I, I
and
agree.
didn't upgrade. And yeah, they look good right now. The lineup looks good, 2 through 5. The middle of the lineup looks really good. But we knew that. We knew that they were gonna have great pitching. We knew that the middle lineup was gonna be good. You knew that. they were going to hit, and they were probably going to win a lot of games and most likely win that division. It didn't look like it was going to be this easy. It didn't look like the AL East was going to be a complete no-show and Boston was going to be horrendous. Who knows if that holds up?
Right.
But basically every guy they picked up in the off season has been terrible. So maybe the Yankees are looking at that like, oh, well, at least we didn't pick up anyone terrible. But
Well, Boston hasn't been good. Baltimore hasn't been good. The Rays, the Rays are the Rays. They're never going to be a pushover. Are they good enough to push the Yankees? I doubt it. Toronto's not off to a good start, but I expect them to be pretty good though. I expect Toronto to stick around. But you're right. The rest of that AL East is really not that impressive, at least in the early going. Well, a lot can change. It's a marathon, right? And you look at the NL East. I mean, the Braves look like they're going to be good. The Phillies, are probably going to be around. Neither of those teams are off to a great start, but neither are the Mets. So but the team that people are starting to talk about, are the Marlins. And, I've already answered this question. I don't think the Marlins are going to be good, but I don't think they're going to be terrible. And the Mets always have problems with the Marlins. But what do you think? Do you think the Marlins are actually going to be a player in this division?
that's the thing with baseball. You truly never know, and there's always a team every year that comes out of nowhere. And they're really not coming out of nowhere. They had a great second half last year, and they were the reason the Mets didn't make the playoffs because of their such like because they were so good in the second half, and because they had to play the Mets. I think it was two series in that like last month, and they wiped them both times. They've shown that they can win down the stretch, and if they can get a good start. I mean, they don't have talent. They do not have one guy in that lineup that you're like, oh, that's an all-star. Like, oh, that guy's hitting 30 home runs. Oh, that guy's like, even who is that guy? Like, that most of their guys are like a bunch of like prospects and just guys you've never even really heard of unless you really know baseball and they're like veteran journeymen. Their pitching is really good. Their pitching is some of the top prospects, and like you got Sandy in a bounce back year looking like Cy Young Sandy. That's what scares me. Because when you have really good pitching and the way that they hit last year, it was like that stingy kind of Brewers type fundamental baseball where they just get guys on and they play slap baseball and they just torture you and torture your, if you don't have a good fielding team, which the Mets did not last year,
Right.
it cost them. And they're a team that makes other teams pay. It happened to the Yankees last night or the other night, I don't know, 2 nights ago.
Two nights ago.
Everybody was off. But I don't think they're going to be winning the division, winning 100 games. They could be that one of those sneaky teams that wins 87, 88 games that spoils another team's
Yeah, that's fair.
playoff run.
I mean, look, like divisional play is important. You have to beat the teams in your division. And uh, and the way that baseball works, like it's such a long season, and and that's like really kind of the push, right? That's the rub where you have people are like, games you lose in April can cost you just as bad as games you lose in September, and I agree with that, right? But you can't lose your mind just because of two or three games that they could have won in April. And you think about it all season, because you know what? I've seen the Mets be good in April. I've seen them be good in May. I've seen them be good in June. And then all of a sudden in July or August, they lose 20 games. So, it doesn't matter when you lose the games. You can't have any extended losing streaks. You can't have a bad month will cost you a season. So obviously, you want the Mets to have a winning April, and then you move on from there. I think they will have a winning April, but we'll see. Obviously, it's going to make it a little bit more difficult with Juan Soto out. But I want to. I don't know if you saw this comment, and I like Anthony DeComo, who writes for MLB.com. He's been in the studio with the Mets a couple of times so far this year, and I believe it was on Baseball Night in New York last night, but I'm not sure. But I did see a clip of him saying that now that Juan Soto's out, Francisco Lindor has the chance to be the man. And I'm like, it makes no what? He's the man without Soto in the
This is
lineup,
why like the
regardless.
media has like ruined like fandom in ways because they just create these like nonsense narratives that
Right.
nobody like. Some people do think about it, but it's just like nonsense.
It
It's just
is.
like, and then it's flooded in the media to the point where other people start thinking it, and it's like Lindor was the guy. Like Soto has not as good as he was last year. How many playoff games has Soto won us? How many playoff series has Soto won us? Lindor was the best player in New York for that in that 2024 run in that playoffs.
He was. You're right.
'Cause Judge wasn't doing anything in that playoff run.
Till
That guy was
Alonso.
snoozing all of 2024.
Right.
And Lindor was he was so good in that run that like everybody was like questioning Otani's MVP. That's how good he was in that postseason run.
He was. You're right. No, I totally agree with you.
And
I
then they
mean,
added Soto, and then
right.
they missed the playoffs.
Right.
And Soto was good, but so was Lindor. And it's like as good as Soto is, Lindor is the better two-way player. He always has been. So
Right.
and I don't really look at it like that. I don't look at it
Neither do
like
I.
it's baseball's one of those sports where you really can't look at it like, oh, that guy's better than that guy, so he has to like act a certain way.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's not the NBA. He's not a quarterback. They're not quarterbacks. It's just
Yeah, it's not like there's options. It's not like it's a guy
it,
getting certain amount of touches and like
it's silly. It's silly because the only people that are talking about that nonsense is sadly my colleagues in the media. It's ridiculous. It's just such not a thing. Like we were talking with our with your uncles, and they seem
yeah.
to believe that there's this like,
And
and
I could believe that they're not the best of friends. I
of
mean, maybe even
course,
that they don't like each other.
but
But
who
what does
cares?
that matter?
It
What
doesn't
does
matter.
like,
It
especially
doesn't.
for a sport where like they rarely ever have to like do anything together.
They don't
Like,
have to be best pals, and it's just not important. It's not. I could name you 1,000 teams that could have what you threw out a couple when we were having that conversation with Uncle Kevin and Uncle Chad, right? You threw out like a whole bunch of them. Kobe and Shaq. How many
oh yeah.
championships did they win?
Well, yeah, I was trying to think baseball, but yeah. But
No, but
Kobe and
still.
Shaq.
Well, baseball had Reggie Jackson and Thurman Munson. They won back-to-back
Well,
championships. It was a big
apparently
Stanley
Scottie
Cup.
Pippen didn't like Michael Jordan,
Yeah, 6
which
championships.
is nonsense.
Well, whatever. Look, the media for years and years and years, for the longest time, has always been the conduit to the fans. But now, like, players have so much of their own voice, and I'm not saying that what the players say is 100% true either, because they have their own agendas and they have their own things. But they don't have to be best pals. They don't have to. They don't have to go on double dates. They have to do is win games, and whether or not they're best buddies or not is not going to stop them from winning games. The Mets had a terrible season last year, not because of Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor. They had a terrible season last year because their pitching was terrible.
And because they had to use so much of their bullpen so early,
Right.
then they had no starting pitching and they had no bullpen.
Well, they had the Tomato Can Express.
Yeah.
Let's get this guy, let's get that guy, DFA this guy, DFA that guy. It
Yeah,
was
and half of
ridiculous.
them were grocery workers. Like,
Oh, it was terrible. It's terrible.
which
We
is
don't
why
want to.
I do have one last Yankee question for you. I
Sure.
feel like nobody's talking about the fact that they're running a four-man rotation right now, and Fried's thrown 20 innings
Right.
and for just been the first week. So yeah, you got Cole and Rodon coming back, but probably not until at least May. So you're gonna have Freed throwing a crazy workload before these guys come back. Is that any concern to you? Especially with most of these
I
guys
don't.
are really young because surrounding him. So
Right.
like
And Schlittler, wait, when does he go? Does he go tonight?
he's tonight.
Schlittler?
He's tonight. And like you
Uh,
can't really rely on a lot of these
no,
guys to go deep.
you can't. And
Littler's probably the only guy you can consistently rely on
I don't think
outside of Healy.
I don't think they're going to do that much longer. They had a lot of off days built into there's a lot of off days built into April for that reason. So I don't see that, they'll be in a five man rotation. I think they want to see how Heel pitches in AAA, and then they'll just bring him up and plug him in. I'm not worried about that. I mean, to me, they're very pitching conscious, and they certainly don't want to overwork those guys, and they really shouldn't, because Max Fried is a guy who, he was fantastic last year. Certainly is a guy that is one of the top pitchers in baseball, but he also has an injury history. So they're really rolling the dice if they're going to ask him to pitch a ton of innings in April this year. I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think they're going to take that risk. I mean, they're off to a good start. They got the best record, I believe, in the American League. It's 7-2. And we'll see. They got, who do they have now? They have three games with they have three games
Athletics,
with
Vegas,
who? The A's.
Vegas, definitely, yeah.
Oh, that's right, the A's, and then Tampa, right? And they go to
Yep.
Tampa. So, I mean, they're going to get, I don't think they're going to get tested that much by the A's, but certainly, you know,
Tampa always has their number.
no, they're
And
yeah, yeah,
Tampa's always like no one talks about them because they don't make any major moves, but they're always like good. If you look at their hitting numbers right now, they're one of the better
yeah,
hitting teams in baseball right
yeah,
now. Outside of their bullpen, like their bullpen's been miserable. That's the only reason that they're not winning like 8, 9 games right now. If you
right.
like they're hitting really well, their starting pitching has always been top of the line.
That that
They could be a
right.
sneaky,
They're
where
the kind of
sneaky.
team, yeah, they're the kind of team that wears you out too. In a 3 game series, you might win two of the games, but they'll wear you out. They'll make you throw a lot of guys out of the bullpen. They'll wear you out. And right now, look, the Yankees are being carried by three guys right now. And Judge has started to hit a little bit, but I mean, they're not getting anything from shortstop. They're not getting anything from third base. They're not getting anything from catcher. Uh, you know, um,
Barely getting anything from center field and Grisham. I mean, he's been
right,
walking, which
yeah,
is
but
a
he's
little bit valuable but that's it. Like, you don't pay a guy $20 million to walk.
I, I mean, he's not even like, I don't know. I think that I think it was I think that everybody wants to, the running it back thing. They want to like almost like say, well, we really didn't run it back. You did. You ran it back because you didn't really improve. They didn't.
They didn't
So,
add anyone major, and they
and they have needs, right? They need, I mean, Volpe, we didn't really talk about it. I mean, you mentioned it, but before we leave today, before we end the show, I mean, Anthony Volpe, is that like, you're really looking forward to him coming back? I mean,
is he
look,
just gonna slot in,
I
or
root for the
is
guy. I think
Caballero
he's gonna.
gonna?
I think he's gonna. Yeah, they love him. I mean, Cashman loves him. Boone loves him. He's getting his job back no matter what. But how long does he keep it? And do they make a move at the deadline for a shortstop if they really need one? I think they should. But look, I want the guy to do well. He's a great story. He's kid grew up a Yankee fan and grew up a Jeter fan, and you root for guys like that. But he's been very inconsistent
On both sides?
defensively and
Yeah.
offensively, and I'm just not sure if I'm a Yankee fan, I'm really looking forward to him coming back.
I wouldn't really like. I've always been meh on him. He's shown talent. He's shown
Yeah,
pop.
sure.
And he's shown flashes, but he's also shown flashes of being a bum. So,
All right, buddy. Good show.
yeah. Hopefully, Mets win tonight.
Yep. Hopefully, get a good win out of the good week out of the Mets. Good win. Good week for the Yankees, for the Yankee fans out there, and
I guess.
you know, and last week of Knicks basketball, big win last night. I watched the highlights. Certainly was a very interesting ending that
Yeah.
almost was a heartbreaker. But we'll talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
the Knicks and the playoffs next week. on the Gotham Sports Machine. All right, buddy.
Yep. See you
Take care,
next
my
time.
friend. We'll see you next time here on the Gotham Sports Machine.